Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. So today I wanted to highlight a couple of my favorite Black authors and Black books that I have read over my lifetime and especially over the past year or two. So today I've decided to break down the Black authors that I suggest you read into two different categories. I will be touching on Black authors who have published books in fiction, as well as Black authors who have poetry collections out. So I would like to first start off with the poetry collections. So the first author that I suggest is Yrsa Daley-Ward. I have talked about her in my first video that I posted about authors that I enjoyed reading in 2019, and she was one that truly had an interesting perspective in terms of her Black experience in the world and not just in America. I believe she is a British poet and she has lived in many different places. So two of Yrsa Daley-Ward's books that I personally enjoyed thoroughly was Bone. The back of the book says, "You will come away bruised, you will come away bruised, but this will give you poetry." And as a Black woman, I really related to a lot of the pieces in this book. So I will just read a few of the praises. This is one from Pop Sugar. "The actor, author, model, and poet draws from her own experiences as well as issues affecting today's society throughout her work and is truly a storyteller." Another collection from Yrsa Daley-Ward that I truly enjoyed was The Terrible. Now this is her memoir. And I'm not really one to read memoirs, I have to be honest, but this one I was really drawn to because of how lyrical it was. And these are very short stories. Some only take up a page, some take up longer than a page, some have poetry mixed in with prose. Sometimes the prose is poetry in itself and it's very lyrical and it has a certain beat and a rhythm to it, which I really enjoyed. So the back of this book states that it's a lyrical memoir about going under, losing yourself, and finding your voice. And it says, "You may not run away from the thing that you are because it comes and it comes and it comes as sure as you breathe." So I definitely recommend Yrsa if you're looking into more modern poetry and modern day storytellers. Another modern poet that I really love is Reyna Biddy. And in specific, I recommend I Love My Love. And she is another Black poet. She is well known for her audio poems. This collection, she talks a lot about love, about loss, about finding yourself, about what it means to love yourself, which is very important to read about and learn more about other people's struggles with coming to love themselves. It's something that every single person goes through. So I definitely recommend that you check her out. Another collection of poetry from a fellow Black modern poet is Neon Soul, which is a collection of poetry and prose written by Alexandra Elle. Same thing, she has those modern type poems in here with the artistic drawings on the side, for instance, like this. But I don't really, the reason why I wanted to highlight like Alexandra Elle and Yrsa Daley-Ward and even Reyna Biddy is because I don't really hear or see too many people outside of Black BookTube or Black Instagram or Black Poetry Instagram talking about these authors. What that I really love is Yrsa Daley-Ward. She was one of the first modern poets that I ever read and I absolutely loved her work. She talks a lot about the universe and things of that nature. So definitely check her out as well. Her poetry collection, Salt, is one of my favorites to this day. Another poet that I wanted to highlight is Tracy K. Smith, another Black woman. And in specific, I love her collection, Life on Mars. This poetry collection truly changed my life. She is amazing at taking everyday minor occurrences and using those as metaphors to explain the greater themes of life. So she equates a lot of the world and our relationships to the Universe, which is right up my alley. If you read some of my personal work, I have been talking about the planets and the universe and scientific phenomena that happen in my own personal work. So I think she is a good representation of that type of voice in poetry. And another collection of hers is Wade in the Water. Now, if you don't know, this is a Negro spiritual, and she talks a lot about the Black experience in America in this poetry collection. So I'll just read you a brief summary of this from Chanika Haj, the author of Mother Jones. So she says, Tracy K. Smith's Portrait of America is a devastating must-read. Wade in the Water deftly covers 250 years of the American experience, from the refugees' plight to a company's toxic spill to the complications of Black motherhood. So like I said, this is another amazing collection from Tracy K. Smith that I suggest everyone read. So now I want to briefly touch upon a couple of my favorite fiction books that I read in 2019, specifically focused on the Black experience in America. And there's one in here that also entails a book that I read in 2020. So the first book that I also talked about in my Get to Know Me was Heads of the Colored People by Nafisa Thompson Spires. This book is amazing. Everyone needs to read this book, every single person. And she talks a lot about microaggressions that Black people face in the workforce and their day-to-day lives. Also talks about Black motherhood. She talks about what it means to be a young adolescent, a young Black adolescent, finding yourself and being comfortable in your body as a Black person. So I highly suggest. And yeah, I think I've talked enough about this collection. You definitely need to check it out. It's short stories. You can read it as you please. So the next collection of short stories that I recommend that everyone read is Friday Black. To give you a synopsis of the book, it says, these stories explore urgent instances of racism and cultural unrest and the ways we fight for humanity in an unforgiving world. In the Finkelstein Five, he reckons with the brutal prejudice of our justice system. In Zimmerland, we see a far too easy to believe imagining of racism as sport. And Friday Black and How to Sell a Jacket as Told by Ice King shows the horrors of consumerism and the toll it takes on us all. So definitely check out this collection. It's another short story collection, and I found a lot of stories still stick with me to this day, especially the one in Zimmerland, which was mind-blowing, and I really enjoyed his take on the occurrence of racism, just how twisted and sick it could get, you know what I'm saying, which is kind of frightening, but it's important. Another book that I suggest to you is Homegoing by Ya Gyasi. So it's Ghana, 18th century. Two half-sisters are born into different villages, each unaware of the other. One will marry an Englishman and lead a life of comfort in the palatial rooms of the Cape Coast castle. The other will be captured in a raid on her village, imprisoned in the very same castle, and sold into slavery. So this book follows generations and generations and generations from these two sisters, and how each varying person, each varying generation, the family that stayed in Africa and the family that gets sold into slavery and navigates the world of America, how they live and the parallels between each of them. As an African American, I have a somewhat limited perception on the Black experience. Obviously, I've only lived in America. I've only experienced what it is like being Black in America. So I really appreciated having two different perspectives being paralleled in the way that they were. The last book that I wanted to suggest is An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. Newlywed Celestial and Roy are the embodiment of both the American dream and the New South. He is a young business executive and she is an artist on the brink of an exciting career. But as they settle into the routine of their life together, they are suddenly ripped apart by circumstances neither could have imagined when, while visiting Roy's parents in their small Louisiana town, Roy is arrested and sentenced to 12 years in prison for a crime Celestial knows he didn't commit. So this is another fiction collection that is super important in the way that it highlights the way that the judicial and justice system targets Black males and how it affects the Black family. So definitely check this one out as well. So I hope that everyone checks out these books. I will have a link to Black-owned bookstores in the description box, as well as links to these specific books that I've mentioned and some other ones that I have seen floating around on the internet, which I'm sure you have seen, that will help educate you on the injustices that Black people face in the country. I hope you check out the link in the description box as well for ways that you can help donate and help sign petitions for what's going on in this country. I just wanted to highlight a couple of Black authors. Like I said, a lot of these I had to find on my own. Very rarely do I get suggested Black authors, especially on the Goodreads app, might I add. So definitely take a look at these authors and let me know in the comments below other Black authors that you have read and whose books that you have enjoyed and have found informational and important. And if you have any other suggestions and ways to help, let's create an open dialogue and discussion. And I appreciate each and every one of you very much for tuning into the end of this video. And I hope to see you again soon.